Today we are privileged to see one of Arizona's most important architectural landmarks. Most people will agree, a masterpiece. We are here with Chris Henry, son of the renowned architect Frank Henry, the designer of this legendary building and its outlying structures. I want to thank Summit West Signs for sponsoring this interview today and helping to preserve a storied architectural legacy in the state of Arizona. We're honored to meet the son of a great architect and a superior photographer in his own right. Chris Henry, thank you so much for meeting with us today.
Absolutely.
Really
nice to be here.
I wanted to ask you, in your own words, can you describe the style of this famous bank building on 44th and Camelback? Can it be categorized, or does it defy all labels?
Well, I think it does fall into the mid-century mode of architecture at that time, but it's also, my father was a big fan of Frank Lloyd Wright, and his philosophy was organic architecture, and so I think he incorporated this as, the building must incorporate the site into its design. So we are out in the desert, and out in the desert you have rocks, and so that's why I think he picked all those rocks, every individual rock that's on there.
No kidding.
And put each one in its own place. So I think it's desert, and it's mid-century, and it's got a little touch of organic architecture to it.
He called it dendriform, meaning tree-like.
Yeah, these columns.
What is it like to bear the weight of Frank Henry's legacy, and would you like your father's work to be remembered a certain way? What kind of role do you play in preserving his work?
Well, I don't consider it a burden at all. I'm very proud of what he accomplished in his lifetime. Not a lot of people do have things that they're remembered by, especially when it comes to a physical object like these buildings. I think this is his baby, and this is, if he is remembered for one thing, this would be this particular branch. He loved architecture. He also loved Frank Lloyd Wright. A big fan of him. He's very knowledgeable about his life. Probably when he's in his last 10 years, he knew more about Frank Lloyd Wright than probably maybe five other people in the world.
Just to be clear, Frank Lloyd Wright passed away about 10 years before this building was completed, and he had nothing to do with this
Right.
design whatsoever.
No, not at all.
This is
Frank's design.
This is a Frank Henry design through and through.
Yes.
Can you describe the time when your father first met Frank Lloyd Wright, and how was that a turning point for him in his career?
Well, I can relate what I've read and somewhat what he told us. So he was going to Phoenix College here, and he was going to see a Frank Lloyd Wright exhibit at the college. And he went there one morning to look at it, and the doors were closed. It wasn't open yet. So he's waiting outside, and while he's waiting outside, up walks Frank Lloyd Wright. And this is, Frank Lloyd Wright died in 1959. I'm not sure what year this was, but it was probably within the last few years of his life. So he's like 90 years old. And he talked to my dad, and he actually gave him a tour of the whole thing, explained everything. And one of the things that stood out was he told him that architecture was a very noble profession, building structures for people to live in and work in. And I think this has turned him into wanting to become an architect.
Today we're sitting in the presence, right here, in the midst of your father's work. 56 years in its completion, the building and its outlying structures remain in remarkably preserved condition. How can we help educate the public on the importance of maintaining historic landmarks like this, the former Valley National Bank, then Bank One, and now Chase Bank? What can we do to educate the public, to help them understand the significance of this area,
Well, I have been in touch with the historical department of Chase Bank, and we've donated some items that help explain the story of this branch, and they have that, and so they have a department that's available to people to see the history of Chase Bank, and this is part of that history. The city of Phoenix recognizes this as an important landmark. They did a book in the mid-90s, and this was on the cover of that book. I think it's important that the city reach out and try to, I don't know what they can do specifically to educate the general public, but I think they do have a department historical buildings department or something like that. And I think it's just, and there's several groups around town that are mid-century organizations, and they're aware of this building, so it's important to. I don't know how to reach out to the general public though, on any kind of.
That's what we're doing now, right?
Right. So.
Let me talk to you a little bit about Weaver and Drover, architectural firm that I believe your father worked for about 30 years. They lasted from 1949 to 1968 before they were taken over by new ownership. Do you feel like your father's work eclipses that of his former firm's principles? And in a larger context, what is it that allows one architect's work to become a masterpiece where others are commonplace and unremarkable? Does it have something to do with the patron, the owner? In this case, not the owner, but the president. Walter Bimson was the president of Valley National Bank. He was a patron of progressive architecture. How much credit would you give the bank president for approving a radical design departure from that of most banal bank building designs?
Well, I think most people become architects, or they love beauty, they love art. That's why they kind of get into that. I don't think they get in it to be rich. They love art and beauty, and so they all want to express that in some manner and through their designs. And I think a big part of being able to express yourself is to have a client who wants something to be different rather than just the basic efficient functional building. And in this case, I don't know when my father became acquainted with Walter Bimson, but Walter Bimson was the president of Valley National Bank, and it was very important to him. He appreciated art, and he wanted to integrate that into his branches to make them attractions, not just a functional building, because he believed if you made an attraction, it would draw more customers in, and the fact is it does. And to this day, people still come around. I have stories of people who drive from very far away to bank here because of this iconic branch.
They just want to come over here and invest some money so they can come and see the branch.
They could bank anywhere.
Nathaniel Kahn wrote and directed an acclaimed 2003 documentary about his father, Louis Kahn, a very famous architect. And in Kahn's documentary, it helps the public understand how difficult it can be to grow up with a father who is so devoted to his craft. Frank Lloyd Wright had a tumultuous family life. In spite of being such an expert and globally acclaimed architect, things at home were difficult. Were you close to your father, and what was it like to grow up the son of Frank Henry?
I was somewhat close to him. And when you're a youngster, dad is just dad. You don't care if he's a plumber or whatever. He's your dad. Slowly, you become aware of what he does. I do remember at 7 years old coming to this branch grand opening and seeing all these people here and seeing, wow, what a great place. What he's done something really great. And his career started off with a bang. He's the first graduate of ASU College of Architecture. He had a national award for his thesis. He started doing these projects, a number of branches for Valley National Bank that were really beautiful. But after a while, I think he became a little bit disillusioned because these type of projects went away and were replaced with other larger commercial projects that maybe didn't allow for as much creativity.
And what you're saying is the client base did not have the vision of his former clients.
Right. That was a special. Walter Bimson was a special client.
But it's just great to talk to you about your history and hear all the wonderful stories about your father. It's just a privilege to meet you.
I'm happy to be here to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you.